Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond. We are a spiritual community and a center of liberal religion in Richmond with roots stretching back to 1830. My name is Alex Gecker, and I serve on our board of directors. If you are a visitor here today, our congregation welcomes you, and we are so glad you are here. As a community, we are guided not by a creed, but by a covenant to uphold shared principles marked by love, respect, and justice. We welcome you to live these principles with us as you continue your spiritual journey. We welcome you with all of your diverse identities as a whole, multifaceted, and beloved person. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, we invite you to check out our website, join our Facebook group, and reach out by email to membership@richmonduu.org. And I hope everyone will consider stopping by our virtual coffee hour, which starts immediately after this service. So 2020 is almost over, and things have felt really hard this year. And I know the winter holidays, while they bring a lot of joy, can also bring a lot of pain. So if you are looking for a little support, I encourage you to reach out to any of our ministers or our lay pastoral care team. You can go to the website richmonduu.org for contact info. I also want to say, thank goodness tomorrow is the winter solstice. I know the shorter days and colder temperatures have felt really hard to me, especially given all of the other pains and worries of this year. So getting to winter solstice for me feels like a big relief. It is still cold, I am still sad and tired sometimes, but there will be more daylight each day, every single day until summer. I hope that thought brings you some warmth as well. And until then, let's enjoy the warmth of our community here today. So welcome to this Sunday service, made sacred by all of us being here together, worshiping and sharing our time with each other.
The opening words this morning are from Howard Thurman. The old song of my spirit has wearied itself out. It has long ago been learned by heart. It repeats itself over and over, bringing no added joy to my days or lift to my spirit. I will sing a new song. I must learn the new song for the new needs. I must fashion new words born of all the new growth of my life, of my mind, of my spirit. I must prepare for new melodies that have never been mine before, that all that is within me may lift my voice unto God. Therefore I shall rejoice with each new day, and delight my spirit in each fresh unfolding. I will sing this day a new song.
Oh, it's a mighty long way from over yonder. It's a mighty long way from there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Oh, it's a mighty long way. It's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way. It's a mighty long way from there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Every child born is a revolution, is a revolution with a song inside. Some won't hear it, oh, some hear nothing else. You'll sing night and day just to keep that song alive. Oh, it's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. One more time. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Now when you got a dream, you got to stand up and shout it loud and clear. What's that I'm hearing? It's the voice of the people singing that we will make that walk from there to here. Everybody, oh, it's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. One last time. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here, so that we can make that walk from there to here, so that we can make that walk from there to here.
Join me in meditation on the lights of the season in these dark days, the candles of Hanukkah, the fires in the fields for solstice, the lights emulating the star which guided all to the newly born Christ child, and the candles of Kwanzaa and the gifts of African heritage. Join me in a time of meditation. Will you join me in a time of reflection, prayer, inner awareness? Spirit of love and of life, we have been in a dark, difficult time these weeks. We see how many struggle and succumb to this virus, and we see the first vaccinations, and we're grateful and aware we have far to go. May we learn to become people aware of the great gift that is the public health and the 1,000 diseases and pandemics that have gone before in the human family are now our experience too. And so let us be generous of heart with all who suffer any disease or addiction. May we identify more fully with the vulnerability of being human. And may we note the passing of so many with deep respect and an awareness of the loss. But also, may we have great thankfulness and joy for those who have cared for so many, healed so many, and been present to so many at their passing. For the scientists and the researchers, for the people who show up and put the groceries on the shelf and greet the patients at the desk, for those who cook the meals we pick up and take away, and those who simply show up to do the work that is needed. We are so grateful. If this pandemic reaches our hearts, may it reach them in ways that break us open to one another, to the value of community, and to a lasting care and compassion for each other. May it be so. Amen, Ashe, Amen. Blessed be.
Hello, I'm Eveline Jones, and I want to talk about this month's Share the Plate offering designated for the Minister's Discretionary Fund. If your mailbox is like mine, it's full of requests for year-end donations. While there are several charities I like to give to, the major share of my giving in December has been to the Minister's Discretionary Fund. I know that all the money in the fund goes to help out people in our church community who find themselves in a financial bind. And I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck and to be hit with an unexpected expense, a car repair, a vital appliance malfunction, a medical bill. And this year, with the COVID-19 pandemic, more folks than ever are struggling to put food on the table. This is a way to show how much we care about our fellow congregants. I like to use this opportunity to honor someone special or to remember someone who has died. For the person who has everything, imagine sending him or her a card to let them know you have donated to the fund in their name. Finally, I trust our ministers to dispense these monies discreetly, wisely, and with compassion. I invite you to join me in giving generously to the minister's discretionary fund. Thank you.
Today we will learn about the Jordan family, Joseph, Mary, Martha, and Annie, and about how they became the powerhouse force behind the Suffolk Normal and Training School, a school for young people of color that lasted from 1897 to 1984. It's a great story, so let's tell it. You recall that Joseph Jordan, spelled as Jordan, but no relation, had started a Norfolk congregation once he received what he considered to be the blessed theology of Universalism and studied in Philadelphia before he was ordained. Another young black man received the Universalist message. His name was Thomas Wise. He was a graduate of Howard. And when he heard the message, though he had been a Methodist, he went immediately to look for a Universalist church. He settled assisting Joseph Jordan. But he had itchy feet and a desire to start missions, so Joseph encouraged him to go out and start a congregation in Ocean View and one in Suffolk in response to a request from local black leaders to please come and set up another school in Suffolk. So Thomas would go there on the weekends and preach and lead that mission. But what he wanted to do was do what W.E.B. Du Bois had suggested, to build up a purely academic curriculum so that the highest and talented 10th, as he used to say, could have access to places like Howard and other universities where they could lead their people into the full realization of the American dream. But the funding that came to the mission from the Universalist Association was always ambiguous. They were enamored of the Booker T. Washington model, which was to train all the children for jobs, for trades, for those things that would enable them to make a solid and good living. In other words, a sort of universalist education philosophy. Wise was disappointed, and he left the mission with half the families 1 week before Joseph Jordan arrived with Mary and the family in tow. Now, Jordan didn't let that discourage him. He preached on Sundays. He taught school Monday through Thursday. He ran the religious school on Friday. Mary became a teacher and, of course, a homemaker as well. And as was expected in those days. And Martha and Annie became teachers' assistants. The whole family running the school. An amazing accomplishment because they went from having 40 students to having 100 students to having 200 students, and at one point had 300 Suffolk children of color in their school. It was a fabulous accomplishment in which there would have been no other option of any sort. Whatever schooling was offered to black children at the time was meager, very meager, as Barbara Rose Johns would have us know. In celebrating their lives, what we can see is a very real and wonderful thing. They pushed forward and took upon themselves the survival and the life of that school and church because it was instrumental to people lifting themselves out of poverty. A lot of the people in the town came to work for the Planters Peanuts folks. And there was even a sort of symbiotic relationship where the hours of the school were the same as the shifts of the planter's factory, so that mothers could go and work in the factory and still have their children get an education and not need childcare, which was a pretty nifty thing. Now, the Universalists wanted a mission, but they didn't really want to take responsibility for relationship. And that's the big teaching we can take away from what we learn in this. From time to time, they would send money to the Norfolk congregation and to the Suffolk congregation. Never enough, by the way. And interestingly enough, they were running missions at the same time in Japan. Annually, they would send $120,000 to Japan for the missions there. And they struggled and failed to send $6,000 that was for a capital campaign in the Suffolk. The only thing we can use to explain that is a sense of alienation, a lack of relationship, and of course, the reality that the minds of Universalists largely were white supremacist, segregated. There was an apartheid from which we've not yet entirely freed ourselves 115 years later. But the Jordan family kept going. Funding came, funding went. At one point, the Universalist Sunday School Association became the overseer of that mission. And when they did, things were much more prosperous for a long time. But when Joseph Jordan died, as he did in 1929, and Mary had died 2 years before that, when he died, the parish fell away. It was a small endeavor, never terribly successful, certainly not as successful as the school. And Annie and Martha stepped in. Both had gone to college, but Annie really stepped in and came forward and became the principal, the professor of the school. Now, as you will imagine, when Brown versus the Board of Education was passed, the Universalist support for the mission went down considerably. They thought, well, now everybody can just go to school. We in Virginia know that what happened was not we in Virginia will just all go to school. Still isn't fairly and equally aligned. And Miss Annie did know that to be the case. They did amend how their school ran. First of all, they named it in honor of Professor Jordan. So it became the Jordan Neighborhood House. Became a more settlement house kind of operation, ran Head Start and kindergarten for the children more often as the children started to go to other schools, not easily, but going. And therefore, what actually began to happen was that Annie saw a transition to a community center that was powerful and meaningful, and which just recently, 2009, had a reunion for children who had been through that school, and hundreds of people showed up. Now, how come we don't know this story? Well, we wouldn't know it at all if it weren't for two people. Frank Willard was a professor at ODU, and he went and studied about this. He heard some things about the Universalist school in Suffolk, and so he began to study, and then he found out about Norfolk, and back on and on and on. Because the archives on these things are very thin at the headquarters of the UUA. Very thin indeed. Actually, all those things have been moved to Harvard Library, where they've been digitized, and we're getting more and more of them all the time. But to celebrate Black lives, we really need more information. And we wouldn't have Frank Willard's testimony if it weren't for Mark Morrison Reed. The Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, one of our ministers who's been active collecting and teaching our history. He's written many, many books. And I'm drawing today on his book, Darkening the Doorways, and Selma, and Black Pioneers in Their Own Denomination. He was the one that started gathering up these stories of Black Unitarians and Universalists and what their journey was. And one of the things that he has pointed out over and again is that the Jordan family spent their lives in support of this mission. And the Universalists and then the Unitarian Universalists simply spend their money. As we celebrate Black Lives this month, we have to ask ourselves about whether or not we're sufficiently engaged in our work in the question of relationship. Yes, when we raise money, it's great. When we march, it's good. When we do the work of dismantling systematic racism, it's great. And we cannot celebrate lives that we don't know, people whose joy and accomplishment we can't feel. I'm going to invite all of us to conclude this 4-month study of how our faith calls us to look at and celebrate Black lives and declare how much they matter by saying this: we need to build personal relationships, not just the casual one at work, not just the neighbor you say hello to, but meeting and being one with other people of color, in working together on these projects, in following Black leadership, being ready to set aside, especially those of us who are white, set aside our assumptions of how things should be done. Because there's the wisdom in the Black community that got them through the enslavement, Jim Crow, and even the sustained bias that is still up against them. It is this, that relationship matters, that being in relationship is important, more important than money and power, more important than being right and having the correct degrees, more important than amassing influence. Relationship is the heart of celebrating Black lives. I hope for all of us, we'll ask ourselves, what opportunities for relationship in a multicultural congregation we have, which we can build and strengthen. We should be asking ourselves, not what dollars we can send alone, although they help, but also who we can follow, who we can listen to, who we're tuned into, what podcasts we're following, the programming we're taking in, the periodicals, the media that we absorb, what is being said in other neighborhoods in our town by other groups of people. What is that truth as well? When we do that, we build a bridge across a divide where we've only previously partially built a bridge. When we do that, we start to enrich all lives so that Black lives can matter, finally. And for 400 years, this unrelenting problem has persisted. But we are going to be a part of the solution because we can celebrate Black lives together. This week, it was announced that Barbara Rose Johns will be the subject of the statue which will represent Virginia in the Capitol building. She'll be replacing one of those Confederate generals to whom we've knelt and kissed their feet for too long. Barbara stepped out of her high school after organizing the students to resist the second-class, impoverished, tar-shack nature of their education, and became a part of the suit for Brown v. the Board of Education, a revolutionary decision which people like Barbara were brave enough to demand. She can inspire us, as can the Jordan family, with their devotion to equality, to making education possible for everyone in a society that didn't want much education for a great deal of the population. They insisted, they fought, and they spent themselves in the service of those children. Today in Richmond, we cannot fully celebrate our educational system. It still inspires white flight. It still is unequal. The facilities are too often old. The funding isn't adequate for children who've been exposed to extensive trauma. And we know that we need something better. We as Unitarian Universalists can look to the Jordan family and to Barbara Johns and recall, we are not yet where they visioned we should be. But if we celebrate Black lives, we're called into the work to make that happen here in Richmond. Stay RVA, other activities that support the PTOs, our own Cardinal School folks, formerly known as the Green School, and even our risk folks who are fighting to make sure people and families are not turned out on the street and children tossed through different schools, all have an effect. Folks, we have to stay with it, but we have to build the personal relationships with the community of color in which we are known, trusted, and given responsibility. May that be so. Blessed be. Our reading today comes from the Reverend Teresa Inez Soto, the minister of the Oakland Unitarian Universalist Church in California. Her piece today will come from Spilling the Light, her book published by Skinner House Press, our internal UU Press, our external press is Beacon Press. And we're going to read Blessed Are the Hungry. I know that you are hungry for justice, and sometimes when you fail, it feels like the times when you open the refrigerator door, look in, and close it, nothing having met your appetite. But there is always trying again. There is the fact that one just act is the beginning. And together we can build another. The gnawing hunger for a different future is one that we feed in the present. Your diligence, your tenacity, your willingness to learn, not just know, but also do, hunger shaping how you nourish, feeding one another with the long spoons of your compassion until you're strong enough to feed the part of the world that you can reach.
Was a danger in the dawn of time, a risk of life, a borderline, boundaries that humankind would heed. As long as that river stayed swift and wide, the people lived in a world divided forever as a river, so it would be. That was a long, long time ago. Now there is no place we can't go. Mountain high, valley low, ocean deep. But that old river stayed here inside. We still won't make it to the other side until we find the will to build a bridge. If you're gonna build a bridge, you gotta go all the way. Make it to the other side before you're done. There's just no pathway across the deep divide. Over the rising tide, you gotta build a bridge. are the children going to say? Walking in a world left in our wake, stumbling on mistakes that we have made. Will the insurmountable of our time be the distance between hearts and minds who never found a way to build a bridge? If you're gonna build a bridge, you gotta go all the way, make it to the other side before you're done. There is just no halfway across the deep divide, over a rising tide. You gotta build a bridge. If you're gonna build a bridge, you gotta go all the way, make it to the other side before you're done. There is no halfway across the deep divide, over a rising tide. You gotta build a bridge. If you're gonna build a bridge, you gotta go all the way, make it to the other side before you're done. There is no halfway across the deep divide, over a rising tide. You gotta build a bridge. Over a deep divide, you gotta build a bridge. Over a rising tide, you gotta build a bridge.
Let us extinguish our chalice to these words from Joseph Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. Let us extinguish our chalice.
Take the inspiration of those who have served, who've walked the long walk, who've done amazing work, and celebrate. If the story is kindred to you, tell it loud and proud, but never forget to tell it to yourself. Go out and celebrate these lives and the inspiration they offer, because Black lives matter. Blessed be.